Welcome to a brand new deep dive on the travel podcast by ExcursionPass. Our whole mission here is to be those two experts who've actually lived the experience, right?
Yeah.
We want to get ahead of all your objections, all those little doubts you have before booking a trip.
Exactly, yeah. We want to share every single detail so it feels like you are right there living the experience with us while you listen.
Right, and we try to keep it fun, too. Because travel planning can be, well, honestly, it can be stressful. So today we are tackling a massive one. We're looking at the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, the Iron Lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, if you picture visiting the tower, you probably have this very specific, cinematic moment in your head.
Oh, for sure. The postcard fantasy.
Totally.
Okay.
You're strolling casually along the Seine. Maybe you got a fresh crepe in your hand. You turn a cobblestone corner and boom, there it is.
Just sparkling against the Parisian sky.
Right. Completely open. You just walk right up to it. But that is radically divorced from the modern reality of the monument.
Oh, completely. It shatters the second you actually step onto the Champ de Mars.
It really does. You are suddenly hitting this wall of logistics. Dense security perimeters, miles of those metal crowd control barriers, endless ticketing queues.
Yeah, it operates way less like a romantic backdrop and much more like a high-security fortress now.
Which is exactly why we are doing this deep dive today. We want to map out the gritty, practical realities of actually getting yourself up that tower.
So you don't get blindsided when you show up.
Exactly. And to do this, we pulled a massive stack of source material. We've got detailed product specs, Q&A threads, and just a mountain of TripAdvisor reviews for a highly rated small group tour.
That's the one by Memories France, right?
Your Memories France.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are going to stack that up against a completely different approach. A premium private guided tour listed by ExcursionPass.
So we're essentially comparing the highly engineered efficiency of a group experience against the customized pacing of a private option.
Right, pulling back the curtain on the hidden bottlenecks so you can figure out which approach fits your travel style. So let's jump right into the baseline with the Memories France small group tour.
The blueprint for an efficient group visit.
Exactly. And, the very first thing that jumped out at me from the sources wasn't even the tower itself. It was the incredibly strict instructions on where to meet.
Oh, yeah. The meeting point is usually where poorly organized tours just instantly fall apart.
Right, because when you have tens of thousands of people in one space, ambiguity is just your worst enemy.
You need a visual anchor.
And Memories France leaves zero room for ambiguity. The instructions read almost like a tactical briefing, honestly.
But love that. What do they say?
So you are told to meet your guide at the end of the Pontiana. That's the bridge directly opposite the tower. But the crucial, all caps instruction is do not go under the tower.
That is such a vital piece of advice.
Right. You need to have the river behind you on your right, the tower in front of you, and you look for a guide wearing a specific orange badge on an orange lanyard.
From an operational standpoint, keeping the group away from the base is brilliant.
Because it's just chaos down there, right?
Total chaos. The area directly underneath the pillars is this soup of confused tourists trying to figure out which security line is which. You've got unauthorized vendors, massive crowds.
Just a nightmare.
Yeah, so by establishing a rendezvous point on the bridge, the guide can gather their maximum of 20 people in a relatively calm space.
They can verify the tickets, do a head count.
Exactly. And they mentally prep the group before plunging them into the madness.
Okay, so you find your orange lanyard guide, you're in your group of 20, and you're ready for this hour-and-a-half tour. Now we hit the big marketing claim.
The pre-reserved timed entry.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is heavily pitched as a way to avoid the notorious ticket lines. And, when I read that, my brain immediately goes to a theme park fast pass.
Oh, like you're just going to waltz right in.
Right. I'm picturing walking past all the people sweating in the summer sun, flashing a digital barcode, and breezing straight onto the elevator.
Well, that is exactly the assumption the marketing wants you to make, but we really need to clarify the mechanics here.
Because there's a catch?
There is a very specific catch. The pre-reserved ticket absolutely saves you from the primary ticket purchasing queue. If you show up in July without a ticket, you could spend hours just waiting to give them your money.
Which is brutal.
It is. So this ticket skips that entirely. However, it does not skip the mandatory security checkpoints.
So you bypass the cash register, but you are still waiting for the metal detectors.
You are. There is no VIP bypass for modern anti-terrorism protocols at a major global landmark,
Everyone goes through the scanners.
Everyone.
Yeah.
And honestly, this unavoidable wait is where the actual value of these guides becomes glaringly obvious in the reviews.
Yeah, I was actually taken aback by the TripAdvisor reviews on this specific point. They aren't just leaving generic 5-star comments about the view.
They're talking about the wait.
They're emphatically naming their guides, like Remy, Raphael, Sarah, Bayo, Ami. There's this one review from a traveler named Jim, and he talks about his guide, Remy, as if Remy performed an actual miracle.
What did Remy do?
Jim says that Remy made the tight security wait feel, quote, wonderful.
Wow.
I mean, I have stood in security lines in the dead of summer, and wonderful is not a word I would ever reach for.
No, usually it's just universally dehumanizing. You're shuffling forward, feeling powerless.
Getting annoyed.
Right. But a highly trained guide views that captive time as an asset. Instead of letting the group simmer in frustration, they start the storytelling right there on the hot pavement.
And the stories are fantastic. My favorite trivia they pull out is the fact that Parisians originally despised the tower.
Oh, they hated it.
Yeah, the guide is dropping this while you're waiting for your bag to be scanned. They explain that when Gustave Eiffel was building this for the 1889 World's Fair, the artistic and intellectual elite of Paris were just so offended by it.
Didn't they form a literal committee to stop it?
Yes. The Committee of 300, they signed manifestos trying to stop construction.
I think they called it a truly tragic street lamp.
Or an iron monster.
Yeah.
The sheer drama of it is amazing. But I totally see your point about the psychology.
Because it shifts your perspective before you even go up.
Exactly. By the time you finally clear the metal detectors, you aren't just looking at a famous piece of metal anymore. You are looking at an underdog.
You're writing a structure that defied an entire city of critics. It transforms the wait from a penalty into a prologue.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of the ride up, the physical logistics of the ascent actually dictate the entire structure of the tour.
Yeah, the engineering really forces their hand.
Which, by the way, I was relieved to see there are no stairs involved in this specific group climb. But it isn't a straight shot to the top, is it?
No, it's not.
The tour takes you on a first elevator up to the second floor. But you can't just hit a button and keep going. Every single person has to get out on the second floor, navigate the crowds, and then queue up again for a completely different, much smaller elevator to make the final push to the summit.
Right.
Why the bottleneck?
Well, it comes down to 19th century engineering constraints. The tower tapers dramatically as it rises, you know.
Like a pyramid.
Exactly. So the massive angled elevators that operate inside the legs of the tower, the ones that bring you up from the ground, they physically cannot travel vertically to the summit. The geometry just doesn't work.
So that second floor transfer is a structural necessity.
It is, but functionally, it creates this built-in viewing platform halfway up.
Which leads to something in the reviews that completely defied my expectations.
About the photos.
Yeah. When we talk about getting the best view, the instinct is always that higher is better. Right? You want the absolute highest vantage point.
That's what everyone assumes.
But a massive number of reviewers explicitly note that the second floor, which is only about, 377 feet up, is actually the superior spot for photography.
It really is.
I was struggling to see why you wouldn't want the photos from the very top.
It's all about depth of field and visual recognition. At 377 feet on the second floor, you're elevated enough to see the sweeping layout of Paris, but you are still low enough to interact with the architecture.
You can still see the details.
Right, you can clearly see the classic gray zinc roofs of the Haussmann buildings. You can visually identify the Louvre, the arc of the river, the chimney pots. It's like a three-dimensional diorama.
You can actually tell you are in Paris, not just looking at a map.
Precisely. But when you take that second, smaller elevator all the way up to the summit, which pushes you nearly 1,000 feet into the sky, the visual perspective radically changes.
It just flattens out, I'm guessing.
Completely. The 3D diorama flattens out. Paris transforms into a sprawling, two-dimensional gray map. It's an awe-inspiring panorama, but from a purely photographic standpoint, it lacks the architectural texture you get from the lower deck.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. But, I mean, the summit still has the ultimate bragging rights.
Oh, absolutely.
And it has the champagne bar, which is just the height of Parisian indulgence. Plus, it houses Gustave Eiffel's secret personal apartment, which we absolutely have to talk about before we wrap up today.
Well, we cannot skip the apartment.
But getting to that summit requires navigating a second, much stricter set of rules. The security perimeter on the ground isn't the final hurdle, is it?
Not at all. The spatial reality of the summit demands ruthless capacity control.
Because the elevators are smaller?
The elevators are tiny, and the viewing platforms up there are incredibly narrow. Because of this, the sources highlight that the bag policies are aggressively enforced.
Like you can't bring a huge backpack.
Right. You are permitted standard handbags or small backpacks only. Anything larger, like a massive travel rucksack, will just be flat out refused.
Along with the obvious bans on, glass bottles and knives. But I want to pause on the stroller policy because it is incredibly specific.
It's a big sticking point for families.
Yeah. The tour notes state it is stroller accessible, but only if the stroller folds up completely. If a family shows up with one of those large, rigid, all-terrain jogging strollers, what happens?
They will likely be denied entry to the elevators.
Just turned away.
Yeah, again, it's an issue of volume. A rigid stroller takes up the footprint of 2 or 3 adults in a confined elevator car. If it doesn't fold flat, it cannot go up.
Which is tough, but understandable. But that actually brings us to the most sobering rule I found in the source material. It relates to accessibility.
Seopan's note in the Q&A.
Yes. The basic tour notes mentioned that the experience is not wheelchair accessible. But in the Q&A threads, a representative from Memories France named Seopan drops a very stark operational policy.
It's a hard rule.
She states that visitors with walking difficulties are categorically not permitted to go to the summit. Even if that person can comfortably walk onto the elevator on the 2nd floor and stand on the summit platform, they are banned from the top.
Which sounds awful at first glance.
It feels incredibly exclusionary.
It really feels harsh until Seopan explains the mechanical reality behind the rule. It has absolutely nothing to do with whether a visitor can handle the elevator ride.
It's about getting down.
Exactly. It has everything to do with what happens if the elevators stop working. In the event of an emergency evacuation, say a fire alarm, a security threat, a catastrophic power failure, the elevators are immediately grounded.
Which means the only way down is on foot.
From nearly 1,000 feet in the air.
Wow.
And the emergency stairs from the summit are exposed. They are incredibly steep, narrow, and subject to high winds.
That sounds terrifying even if you're in perfect shape.
Right. A rapid descent down hundreds of metal steps under panic conditions is grueling for anyone. If a visitor has pre-existing walking difficulties, forcing them into that descent is a massive safety liability.
Not just for them, but for everyone behind them in the stairwell.
Exactly. It compromises the flow of the entire evacuation.
Okay, wow. When you frame it as a worst-case evacuation protocol, it makes absolute sense. It's not an arbitrary rule at all. It is a life-saving contingency plan.
It really highlights the friction between a monument designed in 1889, long before modern accessibility standards, and the strict safety regulations of 2026.
It really does. And that same safety-first mindset is why the summit can sometimes just shut down completely without any warning.
Oh yeah, if high winds or lightning roll in, that top platform is cleared immediately.
And this circles back to why having a guide is so valuable. When operations suddenly change and people get angry, the guide is there to absorb the frustration and pivot the experience on the lower levels.
They handle the pivot so you don't have to stress.
Okay, so the Memories France group tour is clearly a finely tuned machine. They manage the crowds, they distract you during security, they handle the complex elevator transfers. It sounds incredibly efficient.
It's a very solid option.
Which leads me to our second source, the ExcursionPass private tour.
The premium alternative.
Yes, and this is where I really need you to make it make sense for me. Because ExcursionPass offers a 2-hour private tour. They feature a 9.00 euro summer departure, which I get it's a smart way to beat the afternoon heat.
Definitely.
And they have tiered pricing. It's 100 euro for adults, 95s for youth, and 70 seto for children.
Pretty standard premium pricing.
Right. And that covers the private guide, ticket to the 1st and 2nd floors, plus the summit if the weather allows. But, and this is a big but, I'm looking at the fine print on this listing, and there is a massive caveat.
The skip-the-line policy.
It explicitly states that this is not a skip-the-line tour. You still have to wait in the ticket desk queues and the security queues, which in peak season can be brutal.
That is a crucial distinction to make.
So I have to challenge the value proposition here. If I am paying 100 euros per adult for a private premium experience, why am I still standing in the general admission line?
It feels counterintuitive.
It feels like hiring an outrageously expensive VIP host for an exclusive nightclub, and when you show up, the host just stands next to you in the rain while you wait behind the velvet rope with everyone else. What exactly am I paying for?
It is a completely fair critique, and it requires us to really rethink how we assign value to travel experiences.
Okay, convince me.
Well, in the modern travel industry, we have been aggressively conditioned to believe that premium always means fast. We equate luxury with speed.
Because time is money on vacation.
Right. But that is not what ExcursionPass is selling here.
It-
The value proposition of this private tour is not velocity. It is intimacy and control over the pacing.
I'm going to need a little more than that, because standing in a slow-moving line is still standing in a slow-moving line.
Okay, think back to the dynamic of the Memories France group tour. That guide is excellent, but they are managing a herd of 20 people. They are executing a highly rehearsed performance. They have to keep all 20 people moving at the exact same pace. They have to project their voice over the wind to reach the people in the back.
You're kind of just along for the ride.
Exactly. And if you, as a visitor, have a deep niche question about, say, the hydraulic engineering of the elevators, you have to fight for the guide's attention to ask it.
Right. You are surrendering your autonomy to the schedule of the group.
Exactly. The ExcursionPass private tour is designed for the traveler who refuses to be part of a herd.
So it's about not sharing the space.
Yes. You are still navigating the chaotic entry process, sure, but you are doing it with a dedicated local expert whose sole focus is you. It changes the entire psychological weight of the experience.
You're no longer being herded. You're being hosted.
Hosted, exactly.
Yeah.
If you want to spend 20 minutes on the first floor dissecting the iron lattice work, you can. The guide will facilitate that.
And if you're traveling with kids,
Oh, this is huge. If your kid is having a meltdown and needs to sit on a bench and eat a snack for 10 minutes, the entire tour pauses for you. There's no stress of falling behind a group.
it replaces a theatrical group presentation with a tailored, dynamic conversation.
Completely. It's about setting your own rhythm.
Okay, that actually paints a much clearer picture for the listener. It really boils down to what stresses you out more.
How do you mean?
Well, if you want maximum efficiency and you just want someone else to handle all the logistics while you are entertained, the 20-person group sprint is the way to go.
Definitely.
But if you value your personal space and you want undivided attention to ask whatever questions you want, and you want the luxury of hitting the pause button whenever you feel like it, then the private ExcursionPass tour justifies its price tag, even with the queues.
It's a choice between streamlined efficiency and curated pacing.
Now let's zoom out from the tower itself, because no one just visits the Eiffel Tower in a vacuum. Right?
No, it's usually just one piece of the puzzle.
It is the centerpiece of a much larger Parisian itinerary. It consumes a huge amount of time, energy, and money. And because travel is inherently unpredictable, we have to look at how these tour operators handle things when the plan falls apart.
Weather being the big one.
Weather is huge.
The structural exposure of the tower makes weather a critical factor. And thankfully, both operators share a standard baseline policy regarding severe conditions.
If they close the top.
Yeah, if they are forced to cancel the tour because the tower closes due to high winds or lightning, both of them will offer a rescheduled date or a full refund.
That's reassuring. But the policies actually diverge when it comes to the visitor needing to cancel.
If your flight gets delayed or you just change your mind.
Exactly. If your plans change, Memories France requires a strict 24-hour notice to issue a full refund. ExcursionPass offers slightly more leniency, allowing you to cancel up to 1 day before the experience.
Which seems like a minor detail, but in the grand scheme of international travel, having that tiny bit of extra breathing room can be a total lifesaver.
Flexibility is maybe the most undervalued currency in travel planning.
Oh, 100%.
Which brings me to my absolute favorite detail from the source material. It is an optional add-on for the Memories France tour, and it is a masterclass in travel flexibility.
The river cruise.
Yes. When you book the tower, you can also purchase a ticket for a Seine river cruise, operated by Vedettes de Paris.
And their boats are docked right at the foot of the tower, literally steps away from that Pont d'Ina meeting point.
So convenient.
Oh.
But the brilliance of this isn't just the location. It is the format of the ticket itself.
Because it's an open ticket.
Exactly. This isn't a scheduled cruise that you are forced to take immediately after you finish walking down from the tower.
Right. Siobhan makes it very clear in the notes.
Yeah. Your guide physically hands you the cruise ticket during your tower tour, and that is it. It's activated. You can walk down to the dock and use it on any day at any time during your entire Parisian vacation.
You literally bypass the ticket booth at the river and just board the boat whenever you feel like it.
It is a mechanism that actually allows you to enjoy your vacation.
Which is rare, honestly.
Well, I cannot emphasize enough to you how vital that is. We all fall into the trap of overscheduling, right? You build these massive vacation spreadsheets.
We will conquer the Louvre at 0900. We will summit the tower at 1300.
We will endure a cultural boat ride at 1600.
I don't know.
It turns a holiday into a stressful military deployment.
It really does.
Having an open ticket in your pocket is a psychological release valve. It gives you permission to be spontaneous. Like 3 days after your tower tour, you might be walking along the Seine, the sun is setting, your feet hurt, and you can just look at your partner and say, let's go sit on a boat right now. No planning required.
It totally removes the friction from the experience.
So to pull all of these logistics together for you, our listener, you now have a comprehensive map of what it takes to tackle the Iron Lady.
You know that you absolutely do not meet your guide under the massive crowds at the base.
Right. You go to the strategic anchor of the Pontiana. You also know about the unavoidable structural bottleneck of the second-floor elevator transfer.
And you understand the visual trade-offs, right? The architectural depth of the second floor versus the sprawling map of the summit.
As well as the intense safety regulations and evacuation protocols that govern who can actually go up there in the first place.
And most importantly, you can confidently weigh your options.
Right. The entertaining, crowd-controlled efficiency of a small group against the unhurried, highly customized pacing of a private guide.
Armed with this intel, you are not going to be the bewildered tourist fighting with security over a rigid stroller.
Exactly. You know how this fortress operates.
Because the ultimate goal of understanding these logistics is so you can look past them. Once the mechanics of the visit are solved, you can actually absorb the history and the sheer audacity of the structure.
Which is so important. And speaking of audacity, I promised we would circle back to Gustave Eiffel's secret apartment before we let you go.
Oh, this is the best part.
I really want to leave you with this image to mull over as you plan your own trip. We talked about how much the artistic elite hated this tower when it was proposed, right?
Right. They ruthlessly mocked Eiffel. They petitioned to stop him.
It was an incredibly public, hostile campaign against his vision. And how does he respond?
By building the ultimate flex.
He doesn't just build the tower and prove the engineering works. He builds himself a private, 1,000-square-foot sanctuary at the absolute highest point of the summit, nearly 1,000 feet above the street.
And he furnishes it with, like, velvet couches, wooden cabinets.
A grand piano. It wasn't open to the public. It was his personal domain.
A literal ivory tower, but built of iron.
Yes. And he used it to host the most brilliant minds of the 19th century. Thomas Edison traveled to Paris and spent hours up in that apartment gifting Eiffel one of his early photographs.
It's just incredible.
I mean, just imagine the scene. You are sitting above the clouds, drinking champagne with Thomas Edison, looking down at the tiny, ant-sized figures of the critics who said your tower would collapse and ruin the skyline.
You are physically looking down on your haters.
Literally.
Yeah.
What kind of conversations happened in that room? It has to be the most spectacular, passive-aggressive architectural mic drop in human history.
It really is a testament to the fact that the most enduring monuments are often born from immense friction.
Definitely something to think about when you are finally standing on that summit yourself, feeling the wind and looking out over Paris. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, and we will see you on the next one.